The most sacred responsibility you'll ever have as a parent is helping your children maximize the fullest heights of their personal potential, allowing them to explore the possibilities of interest, which provides them with the greatest sense of fulfillment, grace, and the promise of an inclusive and barrier-free future. To give them the tools to etch their contributions to progress into the sand. When you have children born with a disability, your responsibility to fulfill this mission takes on a different definition. According to my friends over at the Annie E. Casey Foundation, they found 1 in 5 children living in the United States, 20% of the population, or 14.5 million children, are estimated to have a disability or special healthcare needs. According to the National Survey of Children's Health. Meanwhile, the folks over at the Pew Research Center tell me that there are more than 3 million single dads across America. My friend Aaron DeVries fits into both categories. He's raising his daughter with special needs with the determination and conviction needed to ensure she experiences the most independent and self-fulfilling life possible. DeVries is also the host of the Inclusive Dad podcast, a platform he created to talk all about inclusion and diversity, welcoming on people with lived experience, parents, and industry professionals, all in an effort to provide information that you can use that's practical if you're in a situation where you're raising a special needs child or just simply want to gain more information on how your perception of inclusion can be expanded. And DeVries joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Aaron, if you're ready, my friend, I'll take a minute to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn all about your inspiring journey raising your daughter, my friend. Great to see you this morning, and thank you so very much for being here.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Absolutely, my friend. And I wanted to start our conversation by just giving you the floor to tell me about your journey as a father raising a daughter with special needs, my friend. Tell me about your journey and what people need to know.
Absolutely. So my journey, I grew up in southern Minnesota in the U.S. I don't remember looking back ever hearing the word disability, knowing anybody like in a wheelchair. I went to a Christian school, K through 8th grade. We didn't have anybody. I mean, special education was never discussed. When I went to high school, I don't ever remember hearing it either. So my first experience with the disability world where it was talked about, I guess you would say, is when my daughter was born. So my son was born in 2001, and then my daughter, Cecilia, we call her Cece, was born October 2002. She was a repeat C-section, nothing out of the ordinary during the pregnancy. 3 months later, we went to a Christmas gathering. Um, Two of her aunts who were nurses at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester noticed she was looking off to the side. So we brought her in to get checked out, found out she was having seizures, so diagnosed with epilepsy, later cerebral palsy. So, like I said, I'm pretty sure I knew about disability and that like it existed, but until my daughter was born and we were in the middle of it, I had no experience with it. So I just kind of went along with what the teachers, doctors, professionals were saying. Just that, I mean, they're the ones that should know what to do. So starting off that journey, she was in the States, it's called like early intervention. So I don't remember the exact age, but she was evaluated, qualified for services, people coming in the house to help out with stuff. So just a lot of that stuff happening. School, like I said, I didn't know anything about the special education, had to learn it all. Along with the school early on, she was, based on the level of her needs, sent to a segregated classroom across town. I went there at the lunch early on and saw the other kids in the class already folding towels in like first or second grade, and I was like, why are we folding towels already? Why aren't they in math or reading class? I mean, that seems like we're already writing them off before they even have a chance to, participate. Found out about inclusion, and after that, just try to get her as fully included as we could, which in my experience, once she was already out off that path of being in the regular class, it was hard to get her back in there. So pretty much the rest of her schooling was every year when we had a meeting, trying to get her more included and more included. Well, at this point, she's old. She turned 22 in October, so she aged out of the U.S. Transition, they call it. So she's not in school anymore. But when she was in high school, still, she was. I don't think she might have gone to like a special education room for one or two classes, but she was pretty included. There's I've given two TEDx talks about inclusion. I have inclusion tattooed on my own. I call myself the inclusive dad. I myself started a podcast last Sunday. Just released episode 50 on Tuesday. I'm having you a guest on my show. I really appreciate that. That seemed like a lot of stuff, so hopefully that covered it.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And tell me in your own words, my friend, what do you think is your daughter's greatest strength? And how does she bring you joy as a dad, my friend?
I would say like her greatest strength is, I mean, she just, like we talked about a little bit, um, just for me, like with what's going on in the U.S. and all that stuff, like it can't get bogged down quickly and all the doom and gloom. She has a much more positive outlook overall. I would say she doesn't get bogged down in that stuff. She just, likes people if I'm paying attention to her, if we're having fun with her, I'm playing a game. She's happy. So just for ability to, stay focused in the moment, feeling the joy in life and not get bogged down in all the stuff that I get worried about, I would say would be her strength. And she's always loved music. So growing up, we went to church more than we do now, and just remembers she'd be in church and the songs were playing, and she'd just sing there, singing at the top of her lungs. Not, I mean, she's not Mariah Carey, but she doesn't care. She just, I always remember more than once looking over, like, man, I wish I could just let loose like that and not care what people think. So, like, just her ability to sing and not worry about what other people are thinking. Also, I really admire her.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, what has your daughter in this journey taught you about the power of resilience and really helping your daughter define her own version of success? What would you say there, my friend?
Um, for me, a lot of like the resilience and perseverance stuff is just we faced. For me as a parent, a lot of stuff upsets me. I mean, if she's not able to, one of my stories I have is she I was in choir. They had a concert at a old theater in town. In order for her to participate, I had to carry her up onto the stage, set her down, and then when she was done, go pick her up and bring her back off the stage so she could participate. So just for me, like resilience and perseverance from my side of it is just, I mean, not giving up, but just all these things that just because she's in a wheelchair, she has to face is not right to me. So just she's taught me that to stand up for what I believe in. That piece of it. As far as her resilience, I mean, I've never seen anybody happy to go to a doctor appointment or a dentist appointment. Like she keeps doing what she needs to do, even if she's having a rough day. So I mean, that inspires me also to keep going. I mean, yeah, she'll laugh at a doctor appointment, gets a blood draw, she's laughing, and I'm hoping I don't pass out. So just her, because I really her ability to find joy is very inspiring, and it helps me to keep on going and keep up the good fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me, what piece of advice would you give to other parents or parents that are in a similar situation as you, my friend, about the importance of advocacy for your children with disabilities? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing for me is I tell parents is to trust your gut. Like if you feel like something's off or you feel like, you know, your child needs something, don't let professionals, teachers, doctors tell you that you're crazy or that you're wrong. I mean, if your gut is telling you that, something about school is off, ask questions. I mean, they, it's your child, you're with them more hours than anybody else is. I mean, they go to school for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. You're with them all the other time mostly, especially when they're younger. So just trust your gut. And I mean, that's sometimes it's easier said than done. I'm not a person who likes confrontation or even questioning stuff, but I mean, there's been enough situations where I felt something wasn't right. I brought it up, and my gut was correct. So I need to do it. It's just, I know as a parent, you have a lot of, especially if you have a child with a lot of extra needs, just it can be tiring. So just, also you need to take time for yourself. That's another thing. Just, I mean, you can't go 100 miles an hour all the time. You need to take breaks and recharge yourself. So those are a couple pieces of advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Aaron, as you know, when you raise a child with special needs, my friend, making sure that they have some level of social interaction and social relationships is important so that they don't fall into social isolation, my friend. So, talk to me about the importance of creating social relationships and trying to minimize social isolation because that's an important part of giving your daughter her personal identity, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for me, that's um, part of the big thing for me for the inclusion piece is, I mean, especially in the school setting, is having her around, typical developing peers. And a lot of these words that I'm using, I don't like them. Just that's what people use to kind of get the point across. So I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody by using some of these words. But I mean, for me, the inclusion piece, just you have to be in the room with them to get them to get to know you. For me, she requires like 24/7 assistance with daily living tasks. So at some point, I mean, I might not be able to do that. Her mom might not be able to do that. I need her to be able to go out in the community and people know her and be able to see her. If she does need help, they can help her. So the social stuff is a big deal. Like I said, for her, big social things were always going to church and then like being inspired music stuff. That's where she kind of did most of her. And also in the summertime, they have a program. It's called Miracle League, where it's like t-ball program for people with disabilities. So that was another socializing time for her. But as a parent of a child with special needs, and she has a wheelchair, so she's limited if the place isn't accessible. I felt like a lot of time as a parent, we kind of have to create some of those situations for her to have the social time. You have to be a little more intentional about it, and definitely trying to get her out. I mean, as a parent, you want your kids to have friends and socialize. I mean, I mean, if I look back, I probably would have liked her to have more opportunities, but I mean, there were many opportunities I can remember where she was able to, get out and socialize. And like I said, her thing is music, so she loves going to concerts. So now going for walks, going to concerts are kind of her big get out of the house, socializing things right now.
Yeah,
Except in winter when it's been cold, but summertime's a lot better for that stuff.
well, when you live in Minnesota, my friend,
Yep.
you experience winter whether you want to or not, right?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And what do you think the average person needs to know about raising a kid with disabilities that they may not always consider? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
I mean, for me, since CC's in a wheelchair, I mean, for me, I don't know, I kind of call it my accessibility radar for me with her, especially like I'm always seeing where there's not a curb cut if the building isn't accessible, just because in order for her to participate, she has to be able to access things or get into places. If we go for walks, we generally walk, where I know there's curb cuts and that kind of thing. If we go to a concert, I'm calling ahead to make sure that it is accessible. I mean, it should be in this day and age, but making sure, figuring out, do I need to buy the companion seat with the ticket? Does it come with it? I mean, things like that, which, if you didn't have a, loved one with a disability using a wheelchair, you probably wouldn't. I mean, the other thing is just, like I said, having to I mean, there's a problem with a child, especially that has the level of needs my daughter has. I mean, there's all these therapies, doctor appointments, all this extra stuff we didn't have with my son. It's just there's a lot of extra stuff, a lot of things that with her we need to do that we don't with my son. So it's just, the level of energy that you're spending just getting getting their child through day to day is just I'm not sure how you can get that point across. It's just if you're friends with like if I have a friend who's wants me to come over and I'm like, no, I'm too tired, just show some grace. And it's not about them not wanting to come over necessarily. It's just they might just be tired, they need to just stay home and rest and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Aaron, if you could snap your fingers and change something about the way people with disabilities are perceived in society today, especially with what's going on in America with the sort of the elimination of DE&I practices. I'm wondering, my friend, what do you wish would change for people with disabilities as they go through sort of their life experience, my friend? If you could snap your fingers and change one thing about the way people with disabilities experience life, what would that be, my friend?
Just one thing, that's pretty it's a great question.
It's a broad question, so you can
It
take.
is a broad question. If I could snap my fingers and change one thing, I guess it would just the first thing that comes to mind is just the having to like feel like you're fighting for just stuff that you should have automatically, if that makes sense. Just like all these things that you're fighting with insurance to get something covered that she needs. You're fighting with a building that's not accessible for her to be able to get into it. You're fighting at school to get the support you need. It just feels like you're constantly in this having to like fight for things that you shouldn't have to fight for. So that's kind of where my brain goes. The other part is just with whatever things that's going on. Like I said, I call myself the inclusive dad. I have inclusion tattooed on my arm. Like for me, it's crazy that a word like inclusion can be and DEI. All the words could be demonized to that level where companies aren't doing those things. I've heard stories of people that are having a speaking engagement now they can't go to it or being told not to use those words in their material because the organization doesn't want to get in trouble or people to look at them bad. I've thought about, I have the word inclusion in my own, like, do I need to cover it up in public so people aren't throwing rotten tomatoes at me or, confronting me? It's just, Stuff like that where just I feel like people, if you're not in that world about disability inclusion, that thing, you just, I mean, what how inclusion is being talked about is not really, in my mind, what it actually is to me in my day to day. So that's the frustrating part. Maybe helping people understand what inclusion actually means and how it's important to everybody. I mean, you've heard the statistic. I mean, I don't have the statistic, but there's a good chance if everybody listening to this, everybody in the world has a pretty high chance of needing help or having a quote unquote, either long-term or short-term disability in their life. So that also is crazy to me where we are kind of demonizing stuff or wanting to cut back things where you might in tomorrow get in a crash or something happen to you where you need these supports and they might not be there. So that was a pretty long answer.
We'll all age eventually, and
Yep.
we won't all always have the same level of ability. I
Yep.
always say that people with disabilities, because as you know, I am one myself, my friend,
Yep.
are the most innovative problem solvers that you could have, right? So,
Yep.
talk to me about the way you've seen people with disabilities in your community and your own daughter sort of have an innovative lens on how she looks at solving problems and getting through life, my friend. So I guess what I'm asking is, how has your definition of innovation changed since raising your daughter, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
And that's a great question. I mean, I'm trying to think of examples, but I mean, I part of my thing with my daughter was just, I mean, I kind of viewed it as that she's my child. I'm going to do whatever she needs, what I need to do, just like I would for my son. So there's been a lot of things. I mean, the house we're in now, we're renting, I mean, doesn't have a ramp out front, and so we found a used like aluminum. I don't know, like it's two chunks together, so like 16-foot ramp on Facebook we bought and put out front. I mean, it's not to code, but it's safe enough. It works. So I mean, trying to find that. Then when you're in the house, you need to you know move stuff different places. Yeah, it's a very interesting question because yeah, then she had to move. We had to adjust the table up higher. And for her, she loves doing stuff like on her own. So she takes meds 3 times a day, and she figures out ways like if my hand's sore because I'm pushing my meds or it's rubbing this way, she'll do it a different way. So she's really good, yeah, like you're saying about figuring out different ways to do things. I mean, I've seen kind of people that um don't have like their hands or arms and stuff, and you see them painting or performing music, and it's like I can't even play music or paint, and I have arms. So yeah, that's a great point about how people with different abilities and challenges are able to figure out ways to do it as well that way for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I'm interested to get your answer to this next question because later this month I'm going to talk to a group of job developers who help
Sure.
folks with disabilities find work here in Canada. And I'm wondering your thoughts on your message to people that help people with disabilities find work and the importance of the work that they do and the thing that you think they need to be reminded about when they're searching for work for people with disabilities. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said, my daughter is 22 and she's kind of aged out of the school stuff. And the last, let's see, probably year, she was going like a couple hours to a classroom to learn some skills. And then she worked slash volunteered at the library, just doing some things there. But for her, I feel like I think you need to figure out, like, if you're trying to find jobs for people, just with disabilities, just trying to figure out what their interests are. I think that's a huge part of it. Like, what do they like to do? I mean, she likes being around people. She likes accomplishing things. She likes computers. So just trying to find things that match that. I know kind of in the States, there's the path of you go to especially if you have a lot of needs, you do those jobs like cleaning or cooking or certain like certain buckets of jobs. I think we need to, you know, expand our mind and think of other opportunities. Another thing I feel like we need to do more of is, um, we have a program in town where, I think, I'm not sure how it works completely, but where students apply and get in this program where they like start their own businesses. And when I look at the people that are in that program and they share pictures and stuff, it doesn't appear like there's anybody with a disability. I think I'm hoping, if a person with a disability loves art, maybe looking at instead of a normal job, a regular job, maybe there's a way they can help them to, build a website or figure out a way to make money doing that. So maybe, think outside of the box of the what we've perceived as the jobs for people with disabilities and kind of broaden that and find what they're good at. And I mean, to me, the entrepreneurship or having your own business seems like a decent option. It gives you the flexibility. Because for my daughter, being at a job 8 to 4, having to be there at a specific time, I mean, is not. She's has a hard time with that kind of stuff. So something where it's more flexible. It's where she can get this work done, but it's not. You don't have to be there in that specific, really tight time frame. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And conversely, I'm wondering your thoughts on your message to anyone that works in government about the importance of putting the adequate amount of funding into services to support people with disabilities. Because when they age out of the system, as you and I both know, that a disability doesn't go away, right? So, what's your message there, my friend?
I mean, for me, we need to support the, we need to have the funding be there for people like my daughter to be able to contribute to society, to be able to live as independently as they want to. So if we have, I'm not sure you get the point across to people that don't see it that way, but for me, it's just about fairness. It's about she's here, she's on the planet just like I am. She's part of society. We need to take care of each other. So I mean, it's very important how what it looks like or the amounts. I mean, I have. It's another interesting part about the discussions about some of the stuff happening now. It's just, I mean, from my experience with my daughter, she's gotten like a trike modified bike where she could ride it, and those things. I mean, it's when it seems like when it has the name attached to it, where it's for a disability or that kind of a thing, the price is insane. I mean, it's literally like a bike you could buy at Walmart. I mean, it's a little fancier, obviously, but you can buy a bike at Walmart for sales for 500. Why does that hers cost like 3,000? So I think there's definitely some stuff in the system where it's like, why does this cost so much? And so I think we do need to watch like how it's spent and be, responsible. But overall, we need to be able to give everybody what they need to be successful in society.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, you talked earlier about finding your daughter or helping her discover her own identity. So I'm curious, what does that mean to you in terms of helping your daughter define her personal identity? And how has your definition of the word inclusion changed over the years, my friend?
And that's a great question because I mean, man, honestly, more recently, um, like the identity piece, I think I've been thinking about it more because a lot of it was, if I'm being honest, I earlier on, and even, I mean, I'm not sure how long ago. I mean, I was more, I feel like I need to protect her from everything and not exposing her to like the same chance to, well, fall or make mistakes as probably I did her brother. So, I mean, that's something I wish I could have done a little differently. But as far as like now, I feel like here, I'm seeing my role more as like if she wants me to help her, if she needs me, then I'm there to help. But it's now more of a she needs to kind of help figure out her own identity and make those same decisions that anybody else does, and see how that goes. So, I mean, that's more of what it was to me for and the inclusion piece, the definition. Um, right away I was like I was full inclusion, so just she should be everywhere that her peers are. I mean, the inclusion, but with that also, I mean, I know that, I mean, it's not reasonable. And we have a lot of, state parks in Minnesota with long trails back to like waterfalls. I mean, to me, it doesn't, it's not reasonable to have the state pay millions of dollars so that she can go see the same waterfall I can. I realize there's some things that I can experience that she will not be able to just because, of certain things. So, I mean, I don't think it's, like that, but the inclusion for me is more about now it's more about like I wanted full inclusion for it. I wanted her to be in there. For me now it's more about okay, what does inclusion mean to you? Like what level do you want? I mean, growing up, I didn't always want to be around tons of people, so I wouldn't have liked being forced into being quote unquote maybe included in that way. So just now it's more about like what she wants. Like I said, do you want to go there? Okay, if we do, then I'll make sure that it's accessible and we can get there. So I've been more recently trying to, have her input be in there as well, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And buddy, tell me about your podcast, The Inclusive Dad, and the impact that you're hoping to make through the endeavor, my friend. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so it's like I said, I think in the intro kind of I started my podcast last summer. I had been on like 3 or 4 podcasts, and each one of them was like, when are you gonna start yours? When are you gonna start yours? When are you gonna start yours? And I was like, okay, that's like 3 or 4 in a row now, so I should maybe there's something here. Just threw it out there on threads. Hey, is there anybody that wants to be on a podcast? I'm thinking of starting. Had a great response, so just started. Just really wanting to. So I interview people with disabilities, parents of people with disabilities, or providers, just talking about inclusion, having people sharing their stories. It's just really a platform for us to talk about inclusion, share stories that some of which would be familiar and we've heard before, like for you and I. But if you're not in the disability quote unquote world, you might not know that. So just giving a place for families to share stories. I've had people thanking me for just because I share my story, they feel able to share their story,
Mm-hmm.
which I love, and then other people, just wanting to do that. The one I released on well, a couple days ago, I interviewed a mom who was going through some stuff with her daughter's school about it being accessible for her to get to band. So now I'm seeing opportunities where people are wanting to use my platform to share their personal story and get her out there into the world more, to create awareness. So it's a lot about that. And when I was looking for a podcast, a lot of the inclusion podcasts are professionals talking about inclusion, like teachers, academics. Inclusion is good. We need to do it. And that part, I couldn't really find a lot of podcasts about inclusion from like the parent side or people with disabilities side. So I really want to use it for that. And it's been a lot of fun. I released my 50th episode was released a couple days ago. I have, I think, 28 more recorded already. So people are contacting me now out of the blue. I'm probably once a week, once every other week, wanting to share their story on the podcast. So it's really exciting. And then beginning of April, I'm going to host the first inaugural Voices of Inclusion Summit. I'm having 4 people share their story about inclusion and disabilities. So that'll be early April. I'll definitely make sure I send it to you so you can share it out. But yeah, just wanting to have a platform for people to share their stories about inclusion and talk about the benefits and how it helps families and people with disabilities.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I'm also curious to ask you about the importance of building relationships with professionals who work with people with disabilities, but also business professionals or people who can provide recreational opportunities. What are your thoughts on the importance of building relationships so that people with disabilities can experience prosperity in all aspects of life? What are your thoughts there?
Like for me at this point, I feel like I mean, to me, relationships are important for everybody, but for specifically for parents of people with disabilities. I think for me it's really important, and I kind of see my podcast kind of as my web and networking for me, like going into like a room with a bunch of people just having to network. I don't like that feeling but so the podcast, like, I mean, met you, learn more about you, and then kind of using that to, connect somebody else I come across with, maybe with you could help them. So just, it's a lot about, we really need to build those relationships. I haven't had a lot of, besides like people want to be on my podcast, I haven't had a lot of otherwise, professionals or teachers or business people coming to me to like build a relationship. So I feel like as a parent, if there's stuff out there you want for your kid, um, I mean, I don't think we should have to like be the ones out there creating stuff that's not there. But I feel like as parents of children with disabilities, a lot of it, some of the stuff doesn't even exist. So we have to build it. So we have to building the relationships, talking about it. If people aren't aware of stuff, they don't know about it if they're not, they haven't come, it's not in their own life. So we need to build those relationships through stories. Their business, the business is not accessible, or if I go in there and it's the racks are too close together, so you can't get a wheelchair through there. I mean, in a nice way, talk to the business owners and just explain like this. If I was in a wheelchair, I wouldn't be able to access come into your business and purchase stuff from you. So just building those relationships and trying to create the awareness for sure.
It's important, yeah, absolutely, my friend. And my final question for you, Aaron, this morning has to do with legacy, my friend, and how you want your own personal and professional legacy to be defined. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
It's a great question. Um, Honestly, it's not something like I think about really. So I'm trying to think of. I mean, I guess for me, like I just want the legacy to be like just somebody that. I mean, I feel like it'd be a dad. Dad's a big part. I mean, that I was a dad that did what I thought needed to be done to create a better world for my daughter and for others. I mean, just doing what is right, up loving my neighbor, including people that don't like me, just, the golden rule, that kind of stuff. So just a lot about doing the right thing, helping people, what I want my legacy to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, my friend, if people want to get connected with you or listen to your podcast, what's the best way they can do that?
So my website is The Inclusive Dad. So just THEINCLUSIVEDAD.com. If you for listen to the podcast, if it's on all the platforms, if you just put in The Inclusive Dad, it comes up, and then yeah, can get on connect with my socials or on the website. So that's probably the best way.
Absolutely. Well, Aaron, I want to thank you for being an all-star dad and a champion of inclusion, and for joining me this morning. Engaging conversation, my friend. I think you're a terrific advocate for the space, and I want to thank you for being here this morning. It's most appreciated.
You're very welcome. It was an honor to be on your podcast.